In the last section, we spoke about reasons that you might decide to use an outside Elastic Cache or RDS instance for data needs in your application. In this section, we're going to talk about how we set up these outside services and connect them to Elastic Beanstalk. So unfortunately, you have to do a little bit of behind the scenes work here. Fortunately, the amount of work we have to do is very, very small. Like it's just going to be a handful of clicks, but the very few clicks or the very few actions that we're going to take require some kind of specialized knowledge. And so before we go and create the RDS instance or the EC instance, I want to very quickly give you an overview of exactly what we're going to do. All right, so you and I are going to have an Elastic Beanstalk instance, and inside of it are going to be our 4 different containers. And we're going to eventually want to connect those containers, or at least some number of them, to RDS, the Postgres instance we create, and Elastic Cache, or the Redis instance that we create. Now, unfortunately, in the world of AWS, by default, these services do not get to talk to each other. In other words, once we create these other services, we cannot just automatically say, oh, hey, containers, go out and find this RDS instance for me and connect to it and make use of Postgres or whatever you might want to do. Instead, we have to form up a very distinct link between the two. And that's the kind of series of clicks that we have to go through. Now, when I use the word link, I am not talking about the same kind of link that we put together inside of the Docker run file just a little bit ago. So the kind of connection between Elastic Beanstalk and RDS and EC that we're going to form up here has absolutely nothing to do with Docker. Docker is not involved one bit whatsoever. This is a completely unrelated aspect of wiring up these different services together, completely unconnected from Docker. All right, so here's the background. Here's what you need to know. Right now, when we created our Elastic Beanstalk instance over here called multi-Docker, it was created in a very specific region of the world. So Amazon has a variety of different regions, or essentially data centers, where you can create these different services. Right now, I'm using the Northern California region. You can find what region you're using on the top right-hand side. And you can actually also just take a quick glance at the URL to get the actual kind of like region code of where you are. So for me, I'm at US-West-1. That's the kind of technical designation of US West or Northern California. Now, in each of these different regions, by default, you get something created that is called a virtual private cloud, or VPC for short. A VPC essentially is kind of its own private little network so that any instance or any different service that you create is isolated to just your account, and it doesn't get automatically shared with like someone else's AWS account. In other words, when you create an Elastic Beanstalk instance, only your account is going to have access to that instance, and not like Bill, Joe, or Ted down the street. They're not going to magically see this Elastic Beanstalk instance appear in their account.